Disney classics, original shows, documentaries, and more, there's a new streaming service in town.
We're Andrea and Patty, and we are now streaming Disney Plus.
Hey y'all, I'm Andrea Updike with themeparkparents.com. You can find me on all social at themeparkparents or at Andrea Updike.
Hey, it's Patty from No-Guilt and the No-Guilt Fangirls Podcast. You can find me on all socials at No Guilt Life. And Andrea, we're at the end of our screeners. Can you believe it?
I don't want it to end, Patty. I don't want it to end, but I have hope because I know that this is only the beginning. We've had some awesome experiences watching a few of these shows just a few days in advance, and I feel really grateful for that opportunity, but I'm excited to see what is yet to come.
Oh, gosh. And we've only been talking about the new things that we've gotten some advanced peeks at. There's some other original shows that are coming out that we haven't seen yet, like The Mandalorian. They're holding that one tight in the vault. They're not letting anybody see that one early. So there's going to still be a whole lot for us to talk about after November 12th. So, guys, this show's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And I think, right now we're definitely keeping our episodes spoiler free, but I foresee that once everything's available to everyone, we might have a few deeper conversations where we do allow some spoilers, and we can all really talk about it. But maybe not. We'll see. We will definitely let you know if we're going to include any spoilers.
Oh, yeah, we'll give you the heads up, because as much as I love spoilers and I love to know things, I know everybody is not like that. I know a lot of people don't even read reviews until after they saw the movie because they don't want, it's not even so much that they don't want to be risked, they just don't want anybody's opinion to encroach, to their thoughts.
Yep.
That being said, you should absolutely listen to all of our reviews though, because don't be that person. No, I'm just kidding. But
I'm such a hypocrite because I am that person.
I know you are.
To certain franchises, not every movie. Some movies I want to see the reviews, but when it comes to Marvel and Star Wars, I will not read a single review until I've seen the movie, and then I want to see if whoever reviewed it agreed with what I thought.
With what you thought. All right. So right now, this is it. This is the last show that we got some advanced screening on, and it is the Imagineering Story. This one we went ahead and saved for last because we felt, well, we're both big Disney parks people with super emotional attachments to it. And that's what this series is all about. How that magic was made, who created it. We are watching and listening to the folks that made some of our most favorite attractions come to life and have those stories of Walt Disney and Roy Disney and
And really, isn't that why we're here on the now streaming Disney Plus podcast?
It all started with the mouse,
with
right?
the mouse. I feel like it's totally appropriate that we're wrapping up this fun little series with where it all began, and that is with Walt Disney himself. And this story, the Imagineering Story, is a documentary series, which I thought it was just going to be a documentary movie. I was expecting 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, but we are getting 6 episodes, and at least the first 2 are about an hour a piece. So if the rest follow suit, which I imagine they would, we're talking 6 hours of footage, 6 hours of storytelling, how these parks came to be, how they continue. I'm here for it. I mean, I am here for every minute of this.
I have a feeling that this is going to be one of the most watched. I have a friend, Teresa, who's been on the No Guilt. Well, she's been on this podcast.
Yeah.
Teresa, who we had on talking about accessibility features for Disney Plus, which if you're interested in that, please go to. She's done a lot of research on it. Definitely go listen to that episode. Teresa lives and breathes this kind of content.
Oh yeah.
If this was the only thing that was going to be on Disney Plus, she would have paid whatever they asked for it to see it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of there too. I've just come off the heels of reading 2 great Disney books, very different books, Disney War, and then of course The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger. And it's just, I love seeing behind the curtain. I think like so many other fans of Disney, Walt Disney, whether it's the movies, the parks, the man himself. I will take any opportunity I can get to sort of have a peek of how things work and the thought process behind them. And it is, you mentioned at the beginning, it's a very emotional thing, the storytelling of Disney. And I think that ultimately is what keeps people buying the toys and going to the movies and visiting the parks. It is wrapped up in our personal history. It's not just this other thing.
Well, I mean, story is what Disney does, and that's what he did that made his theme parks different than any other theme park. That's why Disneyland is Disneyland and everything else is everything else, right?
Absolutely.
And he came up with this idea and he started it all. And what this Imagineering story tells us is basically how that all happened. Now, I know a lot of us who are Disney fans and Disney hardcore freaks probably are sitting there saying, oh, well, I already know all of this. You do. But you don't. I think they gave us a lot more. There was a lot of footage that I hadn't personally seen, and I feel like I'm fairly versed on this. I hadn't seen a lot of this footage. I definitely hadn't heard some of the stories. There's a moment with Bob Gurr up in the Matterhorn.
I loved that.
Did that get to you? That got to me.
Yeah, that
was a good one.
It really was, and I felt like at the beginning of, so just going straight to this first episode 1, it starts where it all began, right? Disneyland. And you really get to see a lot of footage, video, how they planned it, what they went through. Some of that was a little familiar to me at the beginning of the episode, but then as they went on, I realized, they've got a lot more time. When you're watching a 90-minute documentary, they got to give you 30 years of history, 40 years of history in 90 minutes. And I love how this is a little bit more drawn out because you get a lot of details that they just don't make it into the film when it's a shorter film. And one thing that really stood out to me about this episode is the way they focused on the opening day of Disneyland. Did any of that content surprise you when they talked about opening day?
No, I've actually read a lot about opening day of Disneyland. Had you not heard about this story? It was crazy. Oh, I take it back. The one content that did surprise me was there's an aerial shot of the crowds lined up outside to get into the parks. Now, I do know, I had remembered reading or hearing or seeing or whatever the deal was, that basically they sold an X amount of tickets, but then people made copies of those tickets or forged tickets and sold those on top. So there was really way too many people who were trying to get into Disneyland on that day. And I do remember hearing that, but I think that might have been the first time I visually saw all these folks lined up.
Yes.
And it did blow me away. That one blew me away. But everything else I had heard a lot of that.
There was quite a bit that I had not heard in terms of how that first day was really kind of a disaster. That was a little bit news to me. I mean, I knew that it was overcrowded and all that stuff, but some of the actual examples they gave, the boat
was
starting
bad
to sink, people jumping over fences to get into rides so they didn't have to wait in line. Some of that was news to me, and they had some really interesting footage to go along with it. So I found that to be a little bit further along than some of the other things that I've seen. I thought it was very well produced, lots of good information, lots of different perspectives, and footage of Mary Blair I've never seen before. Just really good. I mean, I think every fan is going to get something out of it. There might be some things that are redundant to you, but I don't think that's a problem with most of us, honestly.
No, you are correct, especially for those of us that are happy to go back to the parks time and time and time again.
Yeah.
And that's where, we all say it. It's our happy place. It is our happy place, and this is why. And these are the people that we get to, thank for doing all of that. And the show is beautifully done with all the deep archive dive that they went into this. The first episode that we watched was the creation and everything we love about Disneyland, and it's very much focused on that. And there was just a lot of little snippets and a lot of things to, for example, this I did not know. They were talking about the Tiki Room, and I did know that the Tiki birds were the first animatronics, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the first things that started this whole animatronic situation that we have going on at Disneyland. But do you know why? I mean, did you catch that as to why they created mechanical birds?
Yes.
That was news. That was news to me.
Yes, that was fascinating.
It was.
How they came to that conclusion was very interesting, and I kind of laughed. I chuckled at that.
Oh, well, and it was so matter of fact, and it was so perfect for the answer. So just I'm not gonna say the line exactly, but I am gonna tell you the conversation around it, guys, so you'll know when to listen for it when you watch the show. But they wanted to make a restaurant or a tropical hideaway bar kind of thing, which, funny enough, years later there is one now, but with these birds in cages above, the diners. And Walt just looked at those Imagineers and said, "You can't do that." And they said, "Why not?" He's like, "You can't put birds in cages." And they're like, "But why not?" And then he tells them why. And bum, bum, bum. That's how we ended up with mechanical birds. So it's little things like that I think even if you know every single thing about everything about Disneyland, you're still going to be smiling and happy spending this time, because if you are that person and you already know all those things, this show is made for you.
Yeah. And a couple little just production notes that I found really interesting. The narrator of the series is Angela Bassett. So if you recognize her voice, that's why. And it was produced by Iwerks and Company, and more specifically Leslie Iwerks, who is the granddaughter of Iwerks, who, if you're a really deep Disney nerd, is the person who actually did most of the drawings of Mickey Mouse and the development of that character alongside Walt Disney. So I love that even that is a personal connection.
Oh, well, there's tons of little hidden gems and hidden Easter eggs in the whole Disney cast member and Disney community. I mean, there's a small snippet where we see a baby Kurt Russell.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, you missed it. He's adorable. I mean, he was teen, but but you know how I feel about Zac Efron. So he really struck me as I was drawing conclusions. I was like, oh, look, it's Zac Efron. I mean, Kurt Russell. I mean, all right. But yeah, he's in there, and he talks about the Haunted Mansion, and yeah, there's a lot of little Easter eggs in there in this show to watch and to catch on to. And I definitely think this is going to be a huge hit, and that everybody is going to be talking about this, especially in your Disney communities, which we know you guys are all in all those Disney communities, which, by the way, join ours. What's one more? You might have 999 Disney communities on Facebook, but there's always room for one more, right?
Always room for one more. I love it. So yes, hit us up on Facebook. We are Now Streaming Disney Plus Podcast Facebook group. So you will find us over there, and we love chatting Disney Plus, the new shows, whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about it.
And yeah, once these shows come out, once everybody gets a chance to start watching them, we're going to have threads discussing more in depth. And so if you want to completely point out every awesomeness that you saw in the Imagineering Story, this is the place, because I want to read it. I want to talk about it. So come over and join us there. I started watching the second episode, which I don't think you did. Is that right?
That's right. I watched the first episode, and I love how it really focused on Disneyland, on Walt Disney, and sort of his passing along the baton. And you said, I think you mentioned in one of our earlier conversations, that the second episode sort of picks that up.
Yeah, so at the end of the first episode, they do talk about how Walt passed away. And then the second episode is, I think it's called What Would Walt Do? And it's fascinating because that's, I think the whole, they were so paralyzed by his death. The whole company was. Nobody knew what to do because Walt wasn't there to guide them along like he had been all along. And so it's very interesting. They're giving us a little background peep into what happened and what almost didn't happen, and why things were the way they were for a period of time afterwards. And I didn't get to watch the whole thing yet, but Roy Disney is my personal favorite Disney. Sorry, Walt, I love you, man, but if it was not for Roy, we would not have any of this, guys. So while Walt was definitely the creative drive and a genius in his own right on those levels, Roy was the money guy, and he was the one that knew when to pull Walt back and say, whoa, let's think this through, and how to move it forward. And he was also, I'm such a dork. I'm over here getting teary up. But I do. Every time I walk into Disney World, I go over to the bench where Roy and Minnie are sitting, and I tell Roy, thank you, because we would not have Disney World if Roy did not come back out of retirement and finalize his brother's last big dream, which was this Florida project. And he's the one that made it happen, and he didn't have to do that for us, guys. And so when I go to Disneyland, I always obviously look up at the window at the firehouse and the light in the window and tell Walt thank you. And then when I go to Disney World, I have my chat with Roy, and the Disney brothers are pretty amazing, as we all know. But this second episode seems to focus a little bit on how Roy moved things forward, because they do talk about Epcot and the building of Walt Disney World. That's where this one's leading to,
and how it all came to be. Yeah, I loved one of the quotes at the end. Now the ending of the first episode got me, I'm not gonna lie. I definitely, it was very just meaningful, a little bit emotional for me. But one of the quotes from one of the Imagineers was, now we have to see how much of our work was ours and how much of it was actually Walt.
No, exactly.
It's like, oh, what do we do now? Like you said, it's like, oh no, he's gone. Can we even attempt to keep this thing going? And they all rose to the challenge, and that to me is just as impressive, if not more so, than Walt himself and his initial dream. Because when you have all of these people who are able to take that and keep it going, I mean, it just speaks to the whole mission and the whole idea behind the whole thing of all these theme parks and this whole Disney vision, the Disney difference. So I'm excited to see all of these episodes. I love that we have so much. I was so thrilled when I saw that it was actually 6 one-hour episodes. So I can't wait to watch the rest and really just dig in to this history.
Oh gosh, yeah, soak it all in. I I am that insufferable person that when you walk into Disneyland with me, if you happen to say, oh, what's that over there on that window? And I will launch into an explanation of that. That's me.
I love it.
So yeah, this is the kind of series, this is the kind of show that I think is like a little love letter to the fans and is worth the price of admission for Disney Plus alone, people. If we're speaking to you, if you are that person, which, I get that it's not everybody. I mean, I actually have friends who love the Disney movies and stuff, but they really don't do the Disney parks. That's not their thing. And I get that. But if it is your thing, this one is going to be right up your alley, and I think you're going to get a lot of gems out of it.
Absolutely. And again, I think this goes without saying, but it is totally family friendly. If your kids are into this kind of history, I mean, my boys, I know my youngest just finished reading Who is Walt Disney and a Walt Disney history on his Kindle. And so if your kids are into that sort of thing, they will also love it.
But it's a documentary, so keep that in mind.
So, right. There has to be the interest. They have to be sort of into the history type stuff, which I think one of mine would be. The other one, maybe not so much. But that being said, there's certainly nothing they shouldn't see.
Correct. Completely this again falls in line with it's completely family friendly. It just maybe not something that your kids will actually have an interest in.
Right.
And that's going to depend on age, and it's also just going to depend on your child. Like Lucy will sit down and watch this kind of thing, even though her little friends, I can think of 3 of them off the top of my head who would just be like, bye, we're going to go outside and play, see ya. Have absolutely no interest in, even if it is Walt Disney, even if it is Disneyland, they're not going to watch the show. But Lucy would sit and do it, and she has that attention span where she would do it. So I hadn't really thought about it from a parenting perspective until you said that. So thanks for bringing it up again. That's a good point to make, is it's definitely completely family friendly. It's just a matter of, your kid best. Is this something they're going to have an interest in? And who knows, this might be a way to introduce them to the history of the parks, and they'll go, wow, I didn't realize. And it can also be a way of making your annual trip to Disneyland a little bit different. They might have a different appreciation from it.
Yeah, create a little game, like this is where that happened, or remember this from the show, or that sort of thing. And I think, too, it's a great way, at least for me, I think if your kids love Disney, if you're the type of people who visit the parks frequently or even semi-frequently, I find that I can get my kids interested in history if it is something that they can visualize. So it's like, oh, I've been to Disney World. Oh, this is how Disney World was made. And when there's that connection there, it makes it a little bit more interesting. And whereas if they were to watch some history of, somewhere they've never been, it might be boring and dry. So I like it as sort of like the little gateway to education. I'm always looking for the educational angle. I think, hey, anytime you can learn about the real world and what real people have done, it's a win. And if it's entertaining, even better.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Those are all the previews. Those are all the reviews that we have from the Disney Plus streaming service that we were given some access to in advance. And we want to hear what you think about it when you get your chance on November 12th.
Absolutely. And so check us out on Facebook, Now Streaming Disney Plus Podcast on Facebook, but also come over to our blogs if you have a chance, because we're going to be reviewing these shows on our blogs, justasafourletterword.com, themeparkparents.com for me, and Patty, yours are going to be on...
They're going to be on No-Guilt-Fangirl.com. There might be one or two on No Guilt Life, but I'll link and it'll explain why I'm doing it that way. If you come and take a visit, you are going to find some Disney Plus content to read, and we'd love to have you.
So come on over and let us know what you think when all of this goodness launches on November 12th. Thanks for listening.
See y'all real soon.